Okay, I'm allowing recording and let's go. Got it. Hello, my lovely friends. Welcome to Crystal, my friend, who sat next to me at our lunch just down the road from Bet at the Love Tutoring EdTech Festival, EdTech and Us last year. And I hope you're going to be joining us again this year. Since then, Crystal and I have loved seeing each other grow and develop because we're coming from the same place, which is helping teachers and tutors to do their best work without breaking too much of a sweat, right? We're trying to make life easy for you. Crystal is a superstar in the world of ESL. Yes, you are. And I'm very, very much looking forward to seeing the resources that you created. And the membership and subscription options that are available to QT members, and just basically to learn about you, about your journey, and about how you're helping tutors today. Is that okay?
Yeah, great.
Hey, let's go. Over to you. Demo Fridays. Let's go.
Woo. Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you again, Julia, for the opportunity. And thank you to everyone who has joined me live here. No problem if you can't put your camera on. That's totally okay. I'm very used to talking to a blank screen.
Oh, we will give you all the feedback you need in the chat.
Yes, please do. I'll multitask as best I can, and as only teachers can. So yeah, welcome to the presentation about my company, Crystal Clear ESL. I'm really excited to be here. Like Julia said, I come from the same background as all of you. I am a teacher by trade, and I've kind of fallen into curriculum and resource development in a really unplanned sort of way. So I'm just going to share screen now of the Crystal Clear ESL homepage. Make sure to share my sound, but I don't think there's any sound. So let me know if you cannot see it.
It's great.
You can, good. This is where you would land for the website. In the first instance, it's esl-curriculum.com. And I don't recognize many of the names here, so I'll give you a little bit of background on me. I started my ESL journey in 2005 when I traveled to Japan to teach ESL preschool. So literally from 6 months old, I was standing in front of them for 10 minutes with songs and flashcards, if you can believe it, and primary students. And I spent 2 years there where I met my now husband. And we ended up immigrating to England. You can tell I'm not English. I'm actually Canadian, born and raised near to Vancouver. And when we arrived here, I decided to legitimize my teaching, experience with a QTS qualification. So I'm a qualified teacher. I spent about 5 years teaching English in secondary school environments and became a little bit jaded with the UK education system. So took a escape, a little career break as to start a family as a mom, and did that for several years. And when I was starting to get ready to come back to work, the online ESL industry was very up and coming. So I thought, what better? No strings attached. It's very much like teach and go. I contracted for 3 different companies and just basically taught online as a hobby to students in China. And I loved it. I loved that there was no commitment. And if I wanted to take a month off, I wasn't answering to anyone. And it went really well. So then then I started taking some students freelance as well and sort of learned the ropes to starting a business and everything that gets rolled into that. And at the start of the pandemic, my husband, who is like a corporate business development executive, sadly lost his job in the very first month of the pandemic. And then it was very scary, wasn't it? Like all of a sudden, what was a hobby had to be the main breadwinner. And so I ramped up my online classes, thankfully, because I had this background and had established myself. I was able to ramp up very quickly to teaching like 12, 13 lessons back to back a day, 6 days a week. And what I found was even for freelance wages, which are obviously much more than contracted, I still couldn't pay the mortgage. It's sad times. I live in a really expensive part of England. So yeah, it was really tough at that point. So I started to think outside the box. Basically, I thought, what can I do in non-teaching hours that I can grow into something that's going to supplement this teaching income? And Crystal Clear ESL was born. So I set myself a goal. I structured a curriculum, a scope and sequence of 8 levels, and it worked out to 744 lessons. And I started planning, and then my husband at one point said, you know, if you take this long planning each lesson, it's going to take you like years to finish the curriculum. So I made some tweaks. And about halfway through, I took on a fellow developer to help, who's still with me today. And in June of this year, so 2.5 years into the journey-ish, we finished the curriculum. So that's huge. We're currently the only web-based, purpose-built sequential curriculum that is complete in the industry. So that's a bragging point. And now the fun begins, because since the core curriculum is done, we can divert to many other projects and ideas. So there's lots of things in the works for the company. So yeah, that's sort of the background and how I got here. I still teach, like you, I still juggle all the balls, and I still love it. And I think that that's a really important part of what I do for my company, is keeping a hand in the industry, because not only for testing my courseware, but also just to know what other teachers and what styles and ideas and activities actually work. So yeah, we're very much about going back now to the core curriculum and making improvements. So that's about me and the company. And I thought we would start with a little site tour. So basically, as I said, this is the homepage. There are some demo lessons and testimonials and membership things on this homepage, but probably where you'd like to start is the About page, which has more of like a lot of the background that I just went over. This FAQ is really chock-a-block with information about the company, about the alignments to other curricula that are available out there, about the licensing and where our freelance teachers are sort of allowed to teach the materials, everything you need to know. And then if you continue to scroll down here, you can get an idea of our unit themes, which is really fun. Now, Crystal Clear is a sequential curriculum. That means that once you place your student within the curriculum, you can just continue course by course, and you always know what you're teaching next lesson. That said, I do have teachers on board who tend to do like a more pick and mix way of using it. So we try to be as transparent as possible about the scope and sequence, which you can find here, and about the unit themes. And then when you go into the lesson section, which is the lesson library you have access to as a member, the levels actually do indicate what grammar points are covered in each unit. For example, this unit 1 is covering the topic of days and months and capitalization as a sort of punctuation, a learning point. So there are lots of ways for teachers to do either option, the sequential or the pick out certain areas. From there, I think you would love to see.
Are you happy to hear questions?
Yeah. Oh, yes, please.
I have a couple. So, so who would be using the sequential approach, and who would be using the pick and mix approach?
Well, most of our teachers really love that it's sequential, because it just takes so much stress off knowing what to plan next, and also knowing that every sort of grammatical point or learning objective that students need coming from, you know, beginner straight through to advanced proficiency is going to be covered. And I do talk a little bit later in the presentation about my sort of pedagogical style and teaching philosophy in building this, but the idea is that we cover a lot of topics over time, and then there's built-in review of topics, especially ones that I found within my own teaching that students sometimes struggle to take on board. A lot of my experience ESL teaching is with young learners and beginners, and things like subject verb agreement, even in simple present tense, is something that I have found I have to revisit frequently, and in different ways, so that, you know, different types of students, interests, learning styles are being appealed to, and that retention is actually happening. Really? So it's all done for you, you know, like the sequential aspect just really takes the onus off a teacher, which is particularly valuable in the industry of English as a second language, because so many of our colleagues aren't coming to teaching with like a full pedagogical training. They might be coming from another, you know, bachelor's degree discipline altogether, or perhaps none. So, which is totally fine, because I think teachers come from all backgrounds. But that said, like, it just, this sequential idea behind a curriculum just sort of streamlines their practice and takes the onus off them to know exactly how to teach and what to teach.
That's really helpful. I'm so glad I interrupted you. Thank you. But can I ask you one question? This is a technical one. Is there a difference between ESL and TEFL?
Not really. I found that different countries and different academic organizations tend to just call the same thing different ways. Okay. Like you have TEFL and TESOL, which are
also true.
The same qualification. And they're both accepted equally by employers. They'll say they want a TEFL or a TESOL certificate, for example. It's the same with you hear about ELTs or EAL or ESL. They kind of, it's just all in the same pot, I would say. Sure. That said, an ESL teacher is often one who teaches in the wider industry, whereas an EAL teacher is often connected to a school environment, like
English as additional language. That's right. So it's more like an in-school intervention.
Yes, exactly. That's what I found, but I wouldn't say that it's strictly
Maybe it's school language. EAL is school language.
Right.
TEFL, you used the word industry before. I will love to have another conversation with you another day to actually explore this whole domain. It's really fascinating. Please go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
I agree. I think maybe Natasha had something to say. No. You can come back to us later.
You guys, Jacob, Natasha, Brian, Nalisa, Galina, and Rena, I didn't entirely do that naively. I do also want you guys to jump in and ask Crystal her questions as she goes along. She's prepared a demo for you that will be as useful as you make it. So please ask your questions in the chat, whatever you need to do. We're here for you.
Yeah, and reminders for me to slow down and answer them are very welcome. Okay, so in terms of teaching philosophy or pedagogy behind the curriculum, obviously my teacher training and formal teaching experience lent a lot into that. And back in the day when I trained, the PPP sort of format of teaching, presentation, practice, production, was in favor quite some years ago. And so a lot of my lower level materials, like level 1 through 4 or 5, tend to rely on that model of teaching. And then I try to integrate more sort of TBL, task-based learning later on, when the students have enough of a proficiency to keep up with like a more project-based, or where they prepare something as homework or in advance, and then you do a task related to it afterwards. But I also found, as a teacher, doing task-based learning as a teaching model really relies on an extremely proficient linguist as a teacher. You know, if you're going to try to decipher where the needs of your student lie, you have to have this firm repertoire of grammatical and linguistic experience to draw from. And then you have to have enough of a resource base built behind you to be able to quickly draw from it to formulate your lesson sort of on the fly. So I do rely largely on more of a PPP approach. But that said, it's all about being dynamic with Crystal Clear. Like, when we teach online or virtually, we're limited. It's not a 3D full action learning experience. So we have to sort of do as much as we can to get there. So you'll find that all the Crystal Clear lessons are interactive and gamified. That is limited to the virtual classroom that you choose, however, because if you're only screen sharing, a lot of times the students won't be able to interact with the slides and do the games and the features.
Last time we spoke, you were really focusing on which interactive classrooms. So do you have some recommendations?
Right at the moment, I would recommend testing out Koala.
Ooh, that's a new one.
Yeah, they're great. They have a lot of game.
How do you spell that?
Koala as in the bear. So
great.
teachkoala.com or SuperKid, super-kid.net, because both of those platforms have integrated something called co-browsing. Co-browsing,
we love co-browsing.
Yeah, it's like the level up to screen sharing, and it's very up and coming in ed tech. Crystal Clear ESL, we're actually looking to integrate our own co-browsing classroom. So watch this space. It's been about 18 months.
That's fantastic. Have you spoken to Pencil Spaces?
We did, yes.
Yeah, okay, great.
We are exploring something. So the reason why co-browsing is better is because you open a classroom, you open a web page in that classroom, and then the student and the teacher can interact with that web page equally. Now, that said, most good ones will have teacher permission, so you can like prevent your student from, scrolling off the page or searching something inappropriate. But it just really enables your student to have a more in-depth tactile experience with their learning, because doing is learning, right? So yeah, watch this space. Those are my recos for the moment, and you'll see why. I think the fun next thing that we'll do is have a look at a few of the Crystal Clear lessons. So our level 1 is it's a really small scale. I want to say small. It's focused. It's very focused on phonics. So it's aimed for preschoolers. It's meant to be really fun and not present these non-English speakers with sort of information overload to overwhelm them. It's simple, fun-based, song-based. There's mnemonics built in, games built in, etc. So let's have a look. Can you see this lesson? Panda and scared being the key words.
We're with you. We're with you.
Okay, great. So this is level 1, very pre-beginner material, and we use an amazing platform for our lessons called Genially. You can see the tools down here for big screen or small screen, and I'll just take you through some slides. We're learning some basic conversation skills here. It's very repetitive, so that those little 2, 3, 4-year-olds are just really cementing some really fundamental conversation sentence frames. And then we've got external video links built in. So this is to an ABC song, which is quite good. And a lot of students can participate in that outside class if they bookmark it. This is what I meant by mnemonics and little songs built into the curriculum that just get them.
I need to press play. I need to hear the song. I need to.
All right.
Love each other, love each otter.
Oh.
Love each otter.
Got it.
Right. So the idea is they create these little earworms that the children will hopefully continue singing to themselves or with their families and annoying their mothers to death, that really ingrain those sounds and the concepts behind them, like the link to the keyword or what have you, forever. It's building that foundation in a really fun, memorable way. And then we've got some games like reinforcement of the keywords. This is just a click. So again, if your student is using a co-browser, they can control this themselves. They can move the cursor, they can shout out when they see the otter and, you know, boo or whatever when it's the crocodile and so forth, which really just gives them the power over their learning and is proven to improve retention. As I said, there is review built in. So you can see there's a couple. Oh, actually, the otter was the review, pardon me. Then it moves on to panda, which is the new sound and word. Interactive games. This one, for example, is like a puzzle activity where they can build the panda themselves. That sort of thing. Lots of review. Oh, listening built in. So here we get into some basic blends. You can see there's a number of slides that are asking the child to blend, and there will often be teaching tips so that if the teacher's not sure or we want to give a variety of ideas, there's not one here, but there'll be like little icons the teacher can click on to say, oh, what are we doing with this slide, for example, or what's another extension idea here, that sort of thing. Let's go look at a level 6 lesson.
Wait. We've got some great questions in the chat.
Oh,
okay. Great. So Brian's asked 2 juicy questions here. One is, how do we know where in the curriculum to start our students?
Great question, Brian.
And the second is, can it be used for adults or high school students?
Brilliant. Okay, 2 super good questions. Let's go back. I didn't actually show you about the diagnostic. So in the lessons tab here, you will find a button called free lessons, and you don't need to be a member to use these. There's loads of freebies. We try to regularly publish some seasonal or holiday lessons that you can incorporate into whatever you're teaching, just as a taster. There's also some free games that I'll get to in a few minutes, but what you'll find right at the top here is a level diagnostic for core curriculum, and you can use this as like a tick sheet or as a lesson. I tend to use this when I'm onboarding a new student. I give a free trial lesson. It's short, like 15 or 20 minutes. And not only do I use that time to sell and to see if I have a connection with the student and to ascertain what their goals are for learning with me, but I also use it to diagnose their level or their proficiency. So this is the teacher's instructions. This is the scoring rubric. So you can see if at the end of the lesson, the student has 6 to 8 out of the 24 possible points, then we recommend you place them at level 3, unit 1, lesson 1. So it couldn't be easier to use. And then it's kind of a few more notes. The welcome slide, it's kind of the simplest we could make it. So you would start with this first activity. You would ask your student, how are you? And then they can answer, I'm bored or excited. Ideally, they'll be looking at this picture and they'll be choosing excited. They may or may not be able to figure out in the first try that they can drag that word, which is not the point. The point is, as a professional teacher, you're going to think to yourself, okay, have they showed an understanding of that objective? Tick or cross. And then if the idea is, if they come up to 2 or 3 slides in a row where they're getting crosses, you have reached their proficiency threshold, and you stop there and add up how many they've had correct. So it literally couldn't be more simple and straightforward.
So just to clarify, does the diagnostic test get increasingly difficult?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it moves up through our 8 levels, and if they've done all of them, then they probably don't need your assistance. Or you're going to work on some key skill like exam prep, or they want to
And then you may have a situation where if they were taught by somebody else before, there may be gaps in their knowledge.
Yeah.
And so you can go back to units 1 and 2 to pick up whatever you notice is missing once you start working with them. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of background with teaching very proficient students, but I guess that is the perfect opportunity to do some task-based learning, give them an external article link or talk about some current events or whatever, and then hone in on where those gaps present themselves and create lessons or pick out lessons to fill those gaps. Yeah. The second question was what again?
Can it be used for adult or high school students?
Oh, yes, perfect. Okay, so that is a great question. I'm going to pop to the join now button. This is where you can see all or most of the bundles that we offer, and this is always growing. And you'll see we break it down so that even the core, like nobody is really teaching all 8 proficiency levels at the same time. In most cases, you are creating yourself so much work if that's the case. So what we found is people don't really need to pay for all 744 lessons. We've broken it down into smaller bundles where if a teacher is focusing on phonics, they have access to that. Or if a teacher's focusing on kids, they have access to that. The whole curriculum of 8 levels is suitable for children, right from pre-beginner through to advanced proficiency. And it is suitable for teens and adults from level 4. So what happens at level 4, which is about A2 to B1 proficiency on the CEFR, is that we stop using or
I don't know what you just said. On the what?
Sorry, language teachers. This is like the proficiency levels according to the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. I know that's such a mouthful. Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, and it's what's used throughout Europe and internationally as a
CEFR
description of proficiency for all languages, not just English.
We're learning.
Yeah. Okay. So A2 to B1 is still kind of beginner, you know, like late beginner, early intermediate level. So level 4 and up, and the way that it's applicable for teens and adults from that point is that we're not relying on cartoons, whereas the lower levels are very animated, and we're trying to avoid discussion topics or wording that centers on school or work, because that very much classifies who it's aimed at. So at the moment, that's what's on offer within the core curriculum. However, one of our new projects down, you know, within the next year or so is to really just separate the two and offer a whole core curriculum, both for kids exclusively and for older teens and adults exclusively, which will be an exciting development. Again, as the only one out there, sequentially speaking.
Am I the only person who's really curious about this free ESL teaching course on the right here? What's that?
So this is, it's a free course. It's kind of like a TESOL certificate, but it doesn't come at this point with any qualification. So it's for a teacher who's looking for professional development or tips on getting started, and just, you know, strictly knowledge-based, not because they need the certificate at the end. If they, at this point, they need a certificate at the end, there are plenty of providers out there with certified courses. Aren't there, Julia?
Well, I think we should certify your course, my darling.
Yes, I do think so. This is actually another to-do list. It's so fun. You know what? Like, I guess it was because I was just a mom for so long. And
you will not say just a mom.
Well, I know, but just a mom, just a teacher. And then when I started in business, I feel a little bit like the floodgates opened and suddenly my brain was so sparky with business ideas. Maybe I just found my calling, but yeah, I do feel like when I started the business, the core curriculum was the, you know, the pivotal product, but I have this wall over here. It's a corkboard wall on the side of a wardrobe, and there are at least 20 post-it, like cue card types things just with ideas of what to do next.
And do people say to you, maybe you're doing too many things at the same time and you're supposed to choose just one, and you think, that's not how I roll?
No, I love things at the
Yeah.
same time. And you know, the funny thing about that, people think I'm nuts right now, because not only am I running this business, teaching, and a mom, but I've also just started a master's degree.
Yes, you have. In what?
TESOL, yeah. So it's an MA
Amazing.
TESOL Leadership and Management.
That's really, really valuable.
Yeah, I think
might
it
not
will
have
be.
spotted that. I mentioned in the chat as well, it's so ambitious, the range of resources that you've created here. It's an amazing thing, and none of us are just anything.
No,
but this is glorious.
this is what I learned. That was my big takeaway, and my sort of critical moment was learning I'm not just a mom, I'm not even just a teacher, I've got all these ideas. So it's been fun. And one of the cool things that I didn't mention yet about adult and teen material is that one unexpected benefit of Crystal Clear ESL is being able to host and highlight other curriculum developers. So you can see in the top left over here, there are some smaller courses, Getting It Right, Speak Like a Native, and IELTS Made Simple. These have been developed by an external curriculum developer, and because they're such a complement to what we offer, we are so proud to have the chance to host them. And I'd love to hear from more curriculum developers who want to host with us and have resources that they think complement what we offer, because I just think there's not really enough avenues out there for secondary or passive income in teaching, and really want to foster that in other teachers.
That's a really generous invitation. So if you have a resource that you believe will suit the Crystal Clear ESL approach, Crystal wants to hear from you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's go back, and I want to show you a couple of more lessons, because you can see some things at, different proficiency levels, and how we sort of ramp up. Oh, this is level 8. That's a jump. Let's go back to this one. So this is a level 4 lesson. No, level 3, sorry. And you can see, based on the learning objectives here, they're learning about birds and things. So it is a lot more advanced than the phonics. As I say, these are going to be beginners still, but closing in on the intermediate range. And each of these lessons has quite a lot of content. So especially as you work through the curriculum to higher proficiency levels, what some of our teachers do who have shorter lesson times is they'll split the lessons between 2. So if you think about that, like, you're never ever running out of things to teach if you time 700 lessons by 2. But again, just lots of points for interaction, lots of dialogue prompts to scaffold for those students who may still struggle with the vocabulary or any aspect of forming the sentences. We're learning simple past tense here. I love this one where they do the spinner, and then they have to create a sentence, or even just conjugate the word into past tense. There's so many things you can do with this. All of the lessons include readers, so they're integrated leveled readers, and they'll have to do, I try very hard to integrate not only the topic, but also the grammar that they're learning or the phonics that they're learning within that unit into the readers. So this one is about spaceship, which is quite fun. And up until level 3, we also still have those unit songs, like you can see wrapping up on slide 40. Free talk, all sorts. One of the things that I find really important about teaching and learning is regular assessment for a variety of reasons. So Crystal Clear builds in both formative and summative assessment. Here's an example of some formative assessment where you can, it self-marks, right? So that
sorry, hold on. Summative assessment is assessment of learning.
Yes.
Formative assessment is assessment to inform your teaching.
Exactly. So this happens, midway through the lesson and midway through the unit, and the student can answer these questions, and then it self-marks, and from there the teacher can just note in their head, okay, yep, this student's got it. We're moving on to the next thing. Or, they're still struggling. Let's carry on with a few more practice exercises of this topic. Then we also have a structure built into our units where lesson 7 of every unit is a review lesson and lesson 8 is an assessment. And as a teacher of these students myself, the reason I've done that is I teach Chinese students. Their parents love for them to see and go through the assessment before they actually do the assessment, like a cheat. So that's why it's a review. As a teacher and a freelancer yourself, you can do it or you can skip it. And then I love the regular interval of assessment, which doesn't feel like an assessment. It's still fun. It feels like a normal lesson for the student, but it provides such an important opportunity for me to give really detailed specific feedback to my client, which is a huge business tip, because when you onboard a student, you're learning their goals or their parents' goals for their learning. And by feeding back to them regularly about their progress, you are showing the value they're getting for money, which is huge. That's your job. And then they can turn around and tell their friends, oh, little Johnny did such and such and his English teacher. And I've actually had clients tell me that they've showed my feedback to their mom group and they were all like clucking over it and so proud. So it works.
I like the word clucking. but hold on, let me just clarify. It is really hard for tutors to prove their value and make it easy for parents to understand what we're doing and how it's helping. And so something that's built into a curriculum that gives you quantifiable, measurable impact is a game changer. And it will help you to keep and get new business. That's awesome, Crystal.
100%. Yeah. So, like you were saying earlier, Julia, about trying our sort of ethos is trying to help teachers to succeed in sort of the easiest way possible. That's what this is about. Like by having these regular intervals of assessment, I'm trying to give you the tools and
you are giving them.
Well, yeah.
You are.
But it's up to the teachers to communicate it, isn't it? But
yeah, that's right.
It's all there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's such a. I didn't make these by myself at the end of the day, and I feel like we have such a plethora of help and support to provide others.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I think also the fact that it's ready-made makes it neutral as an assessment tool, right? Yeah. Which is also useful because when you're creating your own assessment tool or pop quiz, you have all these biases. So there's an element of objectivity in the fact that it's provided and based on the learning that I think is also quite, it's appropriate for assessment. It makes their assessment more reliable.
Yes, exactly. I think so too. And especially true if a teacher is preparing an assessment for a particular student with whom they have a long-standing relationship. I think that bias comes in. So yes, I totally agree. So what we're looking at now is actually level 8. So our top level, unit 11. And you can see by this point, the developer who's helped me with this is quite an academic, like her English is her thing, and it's more because it's such a high proficiency level. It's actually, when I'm proofing and publishing them, I kept thinking, wow, this is something I covered in English high school or English uni, or it's actually useful for even proficient, like highly proficient or native English speakers. So just all sorts of, she starts every lesson with a pun that you investigate or an idiom, for example. She introduces different, really in-depth grammar points, clauses of condition, for example, and sentence frames just as a starter for more free speech and discussion. You can see there are also readers here and comprehension exercises. This looks weird, slide 17, because it has some code embedded to self-market. So you don't actually see those gray boxes when you come to this screen. That's a fun one because the students really get a chance to zero in on what they've understood from the reader. And talking about ethics, going over the vocabulary, some pretty high level vocabulary here, like medicated, cosmetic, pharmaceutical. You can see some of the topics and themes that are going on here. And then I love these. She tends to bring it all together at the end to summarize by having students work out graphs or charts or some sort of visual way of demonstrating what they've learned, which is great for those students that maybe aren't super confident speakers or learn better from visual cues, that sort of thing. Extension is always built in. I love that, you know, if that student is sailing and you want to give them that extra stretch, those ideas are there. And as a freelancer, if they're not quite ready, then there are plenty of slides in the lesson that you can just skip out the extension.
That's really useful, hey?
Yeah.
And is extension in every unit from the early units upwards?
Yeah, so by level 8, the extension is more explicit. As you see here, it's a whole slide. But in the lower levels, what we tend to do in those teaching tips is suggest sort of a hierarchy of ideas for how to do the slide. Like, nothing is totally prescriptive. You are entitled to teach that slide however you choose. But if you want to rely on our ideas, we tend to pop them in the teaching notes, and it might be something as simple as you know, have the student spell the vocabulary at one level, and then another idea might be have the student use it in a sentence, or have the student jump into role and use it from this other angle. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a scale of activities.
It's different ways to use the same resource in that case. So you'll be glad to hear that Nalisa has a question and she wants you to ask it. Go ahead, Nalisa.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Hello, ladies. Thank you for this webinar. It's very informative.
You're welcome.
I have 2 questions, and I think they're somehow related.
Okay.
First question is about the proficiency placement test.
Yeah.
Now, normally you would do that before you do a trial with the students, just to see what level they are at.
Right.
Now, if I'm going to be using Crystal Clear ESL's resources or proficiency test, how do I send it to the student? Will there be like a link that's available that I can send to the student to do the test?
That's a great question. We don't currently have a resource that can be sent in advance to meeting the student, but I am going to note this down and see if we can't prepare something. At the moment, the resource is intended to be used during or after you have met the student. So I was saying, I tend to use the diagnostic lesson as my trial class material. Other times, you know, let's say I start a trial class and just the vibe isn't there to have a formal experience like that and work through slides one by one, then what I've been known to do is use it as more of a tick list. So I'll go through it after class and sort of, yes, slide 2, yes, slide 3, no, slide 4, yes, slide 5, afterwards to diagnose them. But yeah, I love the idea of being able to send them something.
Okay, thanks. So right now it would probably be best to do it during the trial lesson, you would say, you know, however long the class is.
Yeah.
All right, so second question, I think it's somehow related to the first one. I think it was mentioned earlier in the webinar. If I'm going to be using Crystal Clear's teaching materials and resources to teach the students, if I'm going to be sharing, if I'm going to be using a platform like Voov or Zoom to teach the students, and I would have to share my screen. Now that's difficult for a student to interact into the lessons. For example, if they need to click an answer, you know. So how do you do it Like, how do you get the student to interact, or would they have to go into the website of Crystal Clear? There was something, I think I missed it somewhere. You made some suggestion on how you do that.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go over it again. No problem. This is such a great question and one that I get asked all the time. So yeah, really a good one, Elisa. So there are companies out there that you can migrate your lessons over to, like Koala or SuperKid, that offer co-browsing rather than screen sharing. Co-browsing is an upgrade to screen sharing, and it will allow you and your students to interact fully with the slides. Zoom will do it to an extent. Zoom has something called allowing remote control, which is essentially giving the student permission to control your own mouse. It's clunky. It's limited to PCs or devices that have physical mouses. Is that the plural in this case? And so, you know, the problem for me was that children that I taught from China are predominantly taking lessons on iPads or even mobile phones.
Wait. Who needs a mouse?
So if you're using Zoom and you're giving control of your mouse in order for the student to interact with the slides,
it can't be a touchpad.
Have a mouse. They can't do it with a touch screen at all.
I did not know that.
This is why Zoom is subpar, in my opinion.
Right.
And why I think co-browsing is up and coming in ed tech, because it just takes away any sort of clunkiness or problem or delay or anything. So I would say look into Koala and SuperKid for the moment, because Crystal Clear isn't quite there yet with integrating our own platform. But that said, Nelisa and others, I have never found it to be a problem teaching over Zoom and having the students engage and interact without being able to control the slides themselves. So for one like this, for example, where I know that they're trying to find, oh, there's the teacher tips there. I know they're trying to find the otters. I'll just say, okay, Emily, use the pen function. Where do you want to look? Where shall we look, Emily? And after, you know, a few lessons with me, they know some keywords and can figure out how to circle, and they would just circle on their screen share where they would like me to do the action for them. Of course, with any of these platforms, Zoom, ClassIn, whatever, you're going to have to enable annotations, but then Emily circles that and I say, wah, 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 you got the alligator, let's keep looking, and so forth. You know what I'm saying?
Wait. What's the well done sound? I need to know.
You know, that's a hilarious question. My kids tease me all the time because one of the things that they constantly overhear me doing when I'm teaching online, and this is very embarrassing, you guys are really lucky to get to see this, is my celebration. And I go like this. You did it. Do 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 do.
I have a confession to make. Hannah does that for me sometimes.
Brilliant. I want to dial in. Give her a high five.
And now I'm going to remind you that was just live on LinkedIn. Just saying.
Yeah, perfect. So honestly, I kind of feel like as much as I would love for all my students to have access to all the features of our lessons, which is kind of the point, I've never had a student complain or even show a knowledge that they're missing out on something by only circling or only typing an answer. I hope that
it actually just means that you have to work slightly harder.
Yeah, but that's what we're here for. We're teaching online. We got all the skills.
That's right.
All right, thank you. I will look into the co-browsing with Koala so long, but yeah, thank you so much for answering my questions.
Lisa. Anybody else wants to unmute and ask a question? You'll make our day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead.
I think I just have one or two more things to show you. A relatively new launch to Crystal Clear is our games membership. You can see it at the top here. It's super cool. So the games they work in the same fashion as some of the ones that I've already showed you, but they are all customizable, meaning that you can, customize and change the keywords, key sentences. Let's have a look at buzzwords, for example. So this one, these have like little triangles. I'm not sure you can see it on screen share, but there's a triangle here, I promise. And let's say you're using this for phonics. We're gonna do sop, mop, yop, and hop. And then this little B comes and covers it. So you can get your student to say them all, and then it becomes a memory game. Super quick and easy, right? And if you preload these before your lesson, as long as you don't close your browser, the wording or the phonemes or whatever you chuck in there will save for you. So you can prepare them in advance. My kids love this game. Let me show you another one real quick.
I love it too, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah, it's fun. It's just, there's so many themes in here. I think there are like 25 or 30 games in all. So there's a lot that you can do. I had one that I wanted to share. Oh yeah, Magic Show. So that, depending on your student's interests, you can pick the theme that works. So this one is just learning that Magic E and phonics. So the first thing that you do is pull out the bunny and then click the bunny and you get the Magic E. And then, as I say, it's totally customizable. You can, get your student to choose the blends. You can choose them. And if you change pages, it's got every different Magic E combo. So just a really fun, easy way to reinforce a point. Like I was saying before, if you realize that your student just hasn't quite got it with a particular learning objective, why not finish off a lesson with a game that focuses on that? That's, the best teaching can happen by being able to construct something fun and memorable on the fly. So I think that's all from me. I do have a little video to end off with if we have time, but I'd like first to take any remaining questions.
Natasha, Brian, Elisa, Galina, if you want to add anything into the chat, feel free. Crystal, why don't you press play to the video? And if they want to come forward whilst we're doing that, then I'll be able to bring those questions to you after.
Okay, brilliant. Enjoy.
That was a triumph.
Hey,
Hey,
that was awesome.
thanks.
Fantastic. Let me just
Of everything that I've covered.
hold on. Lovely friends. We're still live on LinkedIn. So first I need to thank Crystal. That was a glorious demo. We got an absolute sense of what you've made and why you've made it and how it's going to help tutors. What I particularly love is that it's not machine learning. It's just a tool for tutoring. I don't mean just in the slightest. I mean, what you've given is more power, more resources, more opportunities for the tutoring experience. And it's a really rich environment with lots of knowledge and lots of skills, sequenced in a really intentional way.
Yeah.
And it feels to me like it signals a lot of trust, which is what it's all about in tutoring. It signals trust to the parent that you have something that's comprehensive, which is so important in language acquisition. It signals trust to the child that you've created something that is fun and accessible and nice to use. And you have signaled trustworthiness in this demonstration by showing tutors exactly what you've made and the scope of it. And for me and Odette, who are obsessed with mums who make awesome things, I mean, we don't mind dads as well, but the fact that you've made this glorious resource coming from a mum and a teacher and just doing something is so inspiring. It's so inspiring. So I really want to thank you. I'm glad that we've created partnerships, relationships, special discounts between Crystal and Qualified Tutor, which I'm not sure I know. So Odette and Crystal, please let me know. But what did we agree?
Yeah, no, I just want to thank everybody for coming and just remind them that if they've come via our invitation, there is a link in there for a discount to join as a Qualified Tutor member, which has a massive host of other benefits. So, and including catching the replay of this. So please take a look and consider joining this wonderful team over here.
Thank you. Do you give me permission just to explain what QT membership is whilst we
Of course.
Thank you. Natasha, Jacob, Brian, and Elisa, you should know that Qualified Tutor is all about making sure that tutors are safe, skilled, and supported. And that is everything from giving you community to learn alongside, training, police check, safeguarding, DBS, and awesome resources to make your life and your work even better than it already is. We run events all through the year, well-being, mental health, EdTech, and of course the Big Love Tutoring Festival, which is coming up in the beginning of July alongside World Tutors Day. And I'm hoping Crystal's going to be there in person that day because she loves a good party. And so we would love Natasha, Brian, Elisa, Jacob, and everybody who's watching on LinkedIn to welcome you into the QT community, which is raising standards in tutoring by making sure that qualified tutors are safe, skilled, and supported, and teaching parents to look for the quality mark. We're making change over here because we care, and we'd love you to join us. Thanks. I am closing the live.